7 a.m. we check on Chucky to make sure he isn't dead in the compost pile. It looks like he'll live to mouse another day.
Hello, Ramona. I can't shake the simplest feeling.
I don't usually make waffles, but I decided to do something special for our Friday off from work. I used to suck at using the cast iron griddle because it's so heavy, but I've finally gotten a hang of it and I am pretty proud of these waffles. It's also one of the few occasions I use the maple syrup we tapped from our red maple trees. We didn't get much this year because of the weird temperature fluctuations in late winter and early spring, so I'm using it pretty sparingly. Christopher has already been hard at work this morning moving some loam we ordered to level out holes in our yard and to build some new paths. Now that we're mowing under the sumac trees again, we can build a wheelbarrow path on the opposite side of our garden. I'm pretty excited to use this. Waffles are ready.
Thank you, dear.
Then I convinced Chris to tell you just how good my waffles are.
The best waffles.
After breakfast, it was already getting late into the morning and the air was so thick and humid. The last week, it feels like in this part of Maine, it's just hot, muggy, bathwater-like air, and it honestly wears me out so fast. So there was a patch of potatoes that never quite took off in my garden, and it's been bugging me, so I decided to pull the potatoes out early and see what was going on underneath the soil. Fortunately, these were my experimental purple potatoes. They're spuds that I saved from last year's poorly performing plants. These ones were honestly not much better, but I don't know. What do you think? Will this crop last me 12 months? So my whole body is sweating at this point. It's so hot and humid, but there are still a few more things to do this morning. Our pumpkins are taking off and need to be trellised. I'm using typical garden twine and my hand scythe to cut it. I love this thing, y'all. I've been cutting my garden herbs and pruning plants with a pair of utility scissors, and my hand was always cramping up. Hand scythes are definitely the way to go. This year has been a squash bugapalooza, and I've been fighting the cucumber beetles the second I put my seedlings in the ground. I'd be curious to hear if other people are having similar problems. I know in Maine we had a very mild winter, and I suspect that is part of the reason we have such an explosion of different pests. So I'm really babying these pumpkins as I'm worried that my squash plants won't produce much this year, and these pumpkins are the only gourds in my garden that are doing well, so fingers crossed that they continue to thrive. The last chore in the garden today is a little flower picking. Our wild rose bush did especially well this year and it is producing like crazy. It's so fragrant and it's attracted many of the pollinators we haven't seen much this year, like the bumblebee and the honeybee. Right now I'm picking rose flowers daily and deadheading the bush so that it continues to flower throughout the summer. These beautiful flowers are such a firework of color and fragrance, but they usually only open once and then wilt away before the next morning, so you have to catch them quick to get most of their medicinal goodness. I honestly enjoy working with these flowers so much, and until growing wild roses, I never understood why people so enjoyed the fragrance of roses, as our cultivars have almost no scent at all. Of course, it wouldn't be a day in the garden without some obligatory Japanese beetle hunting, and these things love rose petals. While calendula flowers can persist for up to a week before expiring, I'm also hoping to encourage it to flower longer into the season, so I'm picking these daily as well. I like to get a bit of the stem to capture the most of calendula's resiny goodness for medicine making. I also had a few onions to bring in from the garden. I would find out later during the week that my onions were falling over early due to onion white rot, and I ended up pulling the rest of the onions to try and save a few that were only starting to show signs of white rot. There's going to be a lot of figuring out to do later if I can't store any of these onions the traditional way, as I'll be probably chopping them up to freeze, can, or dehydrate. Luckily, our garlic did not seem to be affected and it grew abundantly this year. I never thought living in Maine that I'd need to make a regular practice of taking an afternoon siesta, but this heat wave is pretty brutal. I know it's a lot worse for you folks down in California and in the Midwest, but it's pretty rough here as well, especially because of the humidity, so I'm done in the garden for now. I'm taking this morning's rose petals and adding them to my rose water glycerin and rose petal tinctures. Each day I add more fresh petals to each jar and vacuum seal them to process. This process is so therapeutic and it helps me to slow down and literally smell the roses. And also, rose water glycerin tastes really good. In the evening, when it started to cool down, I went outside to just enjoy the beauty of the garden. So how's your gardening season going? I'd love to hear more about it in the comments. It's been a while since I've done a homesteading video, so let me know if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more homestead happenings content. These are always fun and relaxing to make, and I like to give you a sneak peek into what some of my day-to-day life is like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.